Hello and welcome to Portsmouth This Week. I'm your host, Conley Zani. This show is under the auspices of Rich Rayner, our Portsmouth Town Administrator. Together, Rich, myself, and the entire Portsmouth This Week team are on a mission to build community. We do that by introducing you to the faces and the names of our leaders in this magical place we live, and talking about timely and relevant topics. So our show this week is about the Portsmouth Comprehensive Community Plan, and my guest is Gary Crosby, our Portsmouth Town Planner. Gary, thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure. Pleasure's all mine.
I really do appreciate it, and I am very excited to talk about this plan. I dove into it this week, and I truly want to say how impressive I think it is. If there's anybody in this town that knows what's going on and the makeup, it's clearly you. Like, I cannot believe this document is over 200 pages, and I learned so much, and I hope that everybody out there watching will take an opportunity to check this plan out and then weigh in. I understand we've got at least 3 upcoming workshops where people can have input. Let's talk about those dates. Do you know them off the top of your head?
I do. March 7th, they are not just workshops. These are official public hearings that the town
public hearing. Okay.
The town council has to. It has to be advertised 3 times, 3 weeks prior to the public hearing. It is by statute the town council needs to hold these public hearings before they adopt the plan. It's March 7th, March 21st, and April 4th.
Okay,
and
that sounds like 2 weeks apart on each one, right?
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to we'll take as we get further into it, I'll explain the plan a little bit more, but we'll take certain sections of the plan each evening, and then culminating with adopting the plan by resolution, which is not the end of the process, and I'll talk to you about that.
Okay, I cannot wait to hear. And I understand why you got to break it into 3 pieces, because it is a lot.
Well, they don't call it a comprehensive plan for nothing, right?
Well, you know, I loved it. We got to talk a little earlier this week, and you kind of joked. You said, it's so refreshing as a town planner to actually spend my time planning. Right, with all the responsibilities that you have. I laughed when you said that. So you got to do what your magic is here.
Well, it's a different kind of, trying to write a document like this is a very different kind of thinking, you know, and with focus that you need to have. And so trying to carve out periods of time to be able to work on the plan and do all the other administrative work stuff is hard, you know. And it was not actually, to tell you the truth, it was nice to be able to work at home for a part of the time, because I would be able to carve out blocks of time without
uninterrupted time,
exactly,
right?
Exactly. So.
Well, so let's kind of just start with, why is a plan important? Why should I, as a citizen of Portsmouth, want to have this plan and be involved in giving input?
Well, probably unbeknownst to you or subconsciously, you and I and everybody plans every day. We make plans for ourselves every day. A storm's going to be coming. My vision for my household is that I am going to keep my family safe and be well prepared for the storm.
Do this with my pets.
Right. A goal for me would be to make sure that I have enough firewood and enough food and enough of everything that is necessary. And so then a policy to achieve that goal would be, I'm going to go to Clements Market to get my groceries, and I'm going to go to Home Depot to buy a hammer, and I'm going to go to Bill's Sales to get my firewood, and so you're sort of subconsciously planning out as you go.
Goals and policies.
Goals and policies,
okay.
And then the actual action items to support those policies. I'm going to make myself a grocery list and execute it. And so and I perhaps we'll talk about it a little bit later, but that's the structure of the, well, I will talk about it, but that's the structure of the plan, and it's the kind of thinking that you do that action item, me making a grocery list, is actually working towards achieving the goal or the
Right.
vision for my family and my household to be prepared for
Right.
for the storm. So we do that constantly, and so to do it for a municipality obviously is a much bigger job.
With a lot of stakeholders, clearly.
But in actuality, you set out a glimpse for what you. This is a 20-year plan. You set out it's a glimpse on what you aspire to as a community, economically, socially, physically, to where you want to be in 20 years. And
Now,
so,
I understand that we haven't redone this plan in a while,
Oh.
so we're playing a little catch-up here.
yes, it's been most of the current plan was written in 1992, and we updated
wow.
pieces of the plan in 2002.
Okay.
And when we were starting to think about updating this plan, I talked with statewide planning, and they said, Gary, you know, this plan really is so old. We have new requirements that have to be in the plans by state law and so forth. You really just need to start with a blank sheet of paper and start over.
Oh my gosh.
Which is not as daunting as it seems, because you know, every community around here has, every community in Rhode Island has a comprehensive plan. So there's
Yeah.
lots of examples of.
And there
really,
are guidelines from the state.
There are
is my
binders of
understanding.
guidelines for what has to be in the plan.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I didn't, and in fact, by state law, the planning board is who is the entity responsible for creating the comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
I went to the planning board, and they agreed immediately that, and with the idea that it really has to be written in one voice. Committees can't write things very well, and so they agreed with me that I would take on the task of creating a draft
The first draft.
for them
Yeah.
to have something to talk about and to review and to approve. And so that's sort of how that came
And
about.
that's what we're looking at here,
Right.
and what is on our town's website.
That's right.
So just so everybody knows, it's very easy to find. It's on the homepage of portsmouthri.com.
Yes.
It's there, and you can even use the search function and find it. And again, it's good reading, good reading. So this is the first draft that I understand the planning board has already, they've kind of given their seal of approval
Yes,
to this
that's
draft.
right. As I began to, and the town hired a consultant to help me do this, and so, and I'll talk about that in a second, but as I started producing content, going through each of the elements and producing content for them to look at, they held a series of workshops, one for each, monthly workshops, one for each of the elements, and anybody who wanted to comment on that particular element could come to the workshop. They were moderately well attended.
Yeah.
We held another sort of a larger charrette at one point throughout the process once I finally got all of the elements done and all of the, and I'll talk about this in a moment, but all of the policy statements done. We wanted to see whether, for me, the heart of the matter is these policy statements, and it is the policy of the town of Portsmouth to think about this particular topic this way.
Yeah.
And so that's what we really wanted to try and get some feedback for. And so,
Right,
yeah.
and that's so important because that influences all of these other groups like the zoning and the town council and everything. We need
Right.
this document
Right.
to guide us.
Well, it acts in a number of ways, or three ways in particular. It gives the town council and the boards, our zoning board, planning board, and our elected officials and administrative, all of the administration of the town. It gives us guidance on how to address unforeseen things that come up. You know,
Yeah.
something comes up and we have to think about how we're going to deal with it. We can turn to a policy statement in the plan and says it is the policy of the town of Portsmouth, and I'll give a couple examples. So it acts as a guide for governmental function. Also, when developers and private citizens approach the boards about this and that, they, particularly if they're getting some permitting that takes place, they have to demonstrate that their project is consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, kind of compliant. Or
Exactly,
within the scope.
exactly.
Yeah.
So they come to the board and they say, I believe you should give me a permit for this particular project because I believe it is consistent with the comprehensive plan because there's a statement in there that says the town deals with it this way and that. And so they have to do that by law.
It's good for the citizens, it's good for the boards that are...
And it is a plan. I want to say it's a roadmap for achieving our goals for the next 20 years, but it is not, you know, a checkbox of the things that we all have to do. It is a plan, but so it is a road, and there's a who's going to do what. There's all the action items. There's 200 action items in the plan. All of those action items are laid out about who's going to do it, how long it's going to take, the resources that are, et cetera.
Yeah.
I'll talk
But there
about
is
that.
flexibility within it.
Oh, absolutely. It's a plan. You know,
Yeah. Guardrails.
What do they
There's
say?
guardrails.
What do they say? No plan is no plan survives first contact with the enemy.
That sounds like a planning department mantra, right?
Actually, that's a World War I. That comes out of World War I. But anyway. So, so that's why we plan. That's what the function of this plan is. And there's one other aspect to it that is important, and that is the state. Our interaction with the state and our plan, how it interacts with the state. Back in the 80s, the state adopted a reciprocal planning system, and in that, the state has their guide plans for the entire state. They require us to have certain elements, and then of course they realize that every community is a little bit different, and so there's certain elements, there's certain things that have to be in the plan, and they have to approve them. But when they do, it being reciprocal, it means that the state agencies cannot come into the town of Portsmouth and do something which is not consistent with our comprehensive plan.
Right.
So it
No
gives
surprises there.
so it gives us a good deal of comfort,
Confidence
if
and comfort,
nothing
yes.
else. That
Yes.
so we have this plan, and the state, as well as our citizens and our elected officials and all, it kind of puts us all on the same page moving forward towards our goal.
Sounds like that's very important, right?
Yeah.
Well, so let's talk about the plan. Like I said, I took a look. There's several sections. There's kind of 13 or 14
There are 13.
big headings.
There are 13 elements. That's right.
Can you tell us what they are? Just, I think I know there's natural resources and climate and so on and so forth.
Natural resources, recreation, historical and cultural resources, housing, economic development, agriculture. Many comprehensive plans around the state do not have an agricultural element to them. It's not required, but we do,
Yes.
and we feel it's important. Services and facilities, which is basically what we do. Energy, water supply, circulation, transportation, natural hazards and climate change, and land use. So those are the 13 elements. Those are the 13 topics that we cover
Yes.
in the
Right,
plan.
and again, the upcoming workshops, which are March 7th, 21st, and April 4th, will be splitting these elements.
That's right. I think we're going to do the first 4 we'll be able to publish this a little bit better
Yeah.
as the time comes, so that people are, if they're only interested in the energy element, for example,
Yes.
they know which night to
I'm in
come
for energy. I'm coming.
That's another element, which is energy and natural hazards and climate change are both elements that did not appear in our previous plan, and
here they are.
Well, they're required by the state now, so that we have to
Okay.
address those topics.
All right. So we have to have a plan around that. Whether you believe in climate change or not, we've got to have a plan around it, according to the state of Rhode Island.
That's correct, yes.
All right. Well, that's fair,
So,
right?
so each of these elements is made up of 3 parts. First of all, we set out a vision statement for this whatever particular topic.
Like for natural resources, as an example.
Natural resources.
Right?
Portsmouth will be and it's an aspirational statement. Portsmouth will be a community that has preserved and protected its natural resource systems, sensitive water resources, and natural habitat for the benefit of current and future generations. It's an aspirational statement, a vision statement for the second piece of each element, and this is where the consultant that we hired to help me with what I call the front matter, and that is really just, as we were talking earlier, you were talking about us listing in the recreation section, listing all the parks and stuff, and you
Yes. Yes.
it's all the data and the inventories and the forecasts and assessments and all the needs, basically
Yeah.
all the data that is necessary to form a basis for planning. It's all the facts and figures.
Right.
And so when we hire, and then the third element, the third piece of each element is the section that outlines the goals, the policies, and the action items. And this is the part when we were talking about hiring a consultant. It didn't make any sense for them to work on that. I'm the one who's
You're the one who knows.
Who knows that.
Yeah.
They can work on the facts and figures, and
Right.
they did.
Right.
And so it freed me up to work on the goals.
Okay, so there's a vision, then there's this front matter data piece,
Right.
like laying the context,
Right.
and then there's the goals.
Right. Goals,
And there's
policies.
that for each section.
That's correct. So
Okay.
a goal for each element, then, a goal is it's a desired outcome. It's what we want. And I always use a phrase. I kept a phrase in my mind when I was crafting this, that it is the goal of the town of Portsmouth to, and then there's the goal. So in this, an example of that might be, it is the goal of the town of Portsmouth to achieve a balanced, orderly, and harmonious land use pattern that preserves historic cultural resources, supports economic stability, maintains neighborhood integrity, and protects the quality of our natural environment. So that's a goal.
Yes.
Then we have the policies, which we guide us in our actions
the goal.
to support that goal, to achieve that goal. A policy, it's a statement, it's a guiding principle, and there's 72 policy statements in the plan. And again, I use this phrase, in order to achieve its stated goals, it is the policy of Town of Portsmouth to, and I'll give you a couple examples.
Please.
Promote opportunities to integrate affordable housing into existing neighborhoods. Or maintain sound fiscal management of Portsmouth's financial resources by developing sustainable annual budgets to promote long-term financial stability. So it's these guiding principles that are guiding statements, if you will, policy statements that outline what it is we're going to do. How do we think about a particular? How do we achieve our goals? And by using these policy statements. And then lastly is a series of action items to support those policy statements. There's 200 and something of them. A typical action item might be review and update provisions in the zoning ordinance for mixed-use development in commercial districts, or maintain a FEMA-approved natural hazard mitigation plan and update it every 5 years. So those are
Right.
action items and there has to be a thread. I think I said this earlier. There really has to be a thread that runs back up through the plan, that when you are maintaining a FEMA-approved hazard mitigation plan, taking the action to do that, you are in fact taking steps towards achieving the goal and
Right.
the vision for the town.
And therefore the vision, yes.
Right, right. So again, it's a roadmap, but it is also a plan. We can, we will work towards, and there may be other action items that we can insert, or we find that some of these have been overcome by events, or are just not viable anymore. So that's where we are. That's how it works.
Yeah, well, that is great. And so if I'm a citizen of Portsmouth and I'm like, should I go weigh in? What are the elements of the plan that you think might either surprise people, or elements that you think might come up for some debate, or pieces of it that you think are really key? Like, as an example, as I started reading, I would encourage everybody to check this out. It really was, it sounds like it'll be some dry document, but it was fascinating. Like, just in the first few pages, I learned that our soil, so this is in one of the sections on natural resources, and that piece that you're talking about that lays out data, right, that, to inform the goals.
Right.
So one of the pieces of data in there was, and this was shocking to me, that 80% of the soil in Portsmouth, in all of Portsmouth, 80% of the soil is actually not terribly suitable for the current septic situation that we have.
That's correct.
Yes. That fun fact was like, whoa, I couldn't believe it. So shocking, interesting. We need to be talking about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What else rises to your consciousness?
Let me say something about that, and this front matter that I talk about, this basis for planning, the data that we put in the plan for us to plan around. That's a pretty important fact for us to, when we're considering wastewater and
policies around that,
and stormwater and policies around that sort of subject. So that's a fact you can't ignore.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I also loved this section that laid out all the parks and areas. I had no idea, and I haven't grown up here, but I've lived here since 2009, and I kind of thought I had a lay of the land, and clearly I do not. And then understanding where our water supplies are, and
I think some of the things in the plan that might be not surprising or controversial, but might be worthy of talking about, is the whole services and facilities element of the plan, which is what we as a government does. And as you know, there's a good deal of discussion sometimes around the kinds of things that we do as an administration. So that's likely to generate some. And then there's the two new elements, the energy element and the natural hazard and climate change element. I hope will generate some discussion.
Right. We'll have to earmark that session to come.
Yeah. I don't know. I frankly don't know quite what to expect. I mean, I think I think it's a pretty good plan, and I think like I said, it's called a comprehensive plan for a reason. So it may, like you, there may be a whole lots of surprising kinds of things in there that nobody knew about the town before. But for me, like I said earlier, for me the heart of the whole plan is those policy statements. It is the policy of the town of Portsmouth to think about something in this particular way. And if people don't agree with that, I very much like to hear, you know, the town council.
Yeah.
See, here's the other thing, is it's really out of my hands now. I'm a stenographer from this point on. When the council, the planning board has approved the plan, the council will take testimony from people and discuss among themselves whether they agree with any of these particular policy statements or not,
Or goals, really.
yeah.
They could debate the goals or the policies,
Right.
or even the action items.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. So I'm looking forward to the public hearings and
Yeah.
seeing how it all shakes out.
Yeah. But again, let's go back to this process. You've been working on this since, did I catch 2016 was the first real, like, we're diving in and
Yeah.
starting to revamp.
Yes, yes.
So 2016, and then there was a 2018 element too.
We had to get it in front of, I had to get it finished, you know, a draft for
Yeah.
each of the elements, and then we held the workshops, and then the planning board held its public hearing. So it's been a long process.
Yes, we're into a multi-year process.
Right.
This wasn't homework last week.
Right,
This
right.
is years in the making, and very thoughtful citizens of Portsmouth weighing in on this and
Right.
pushing it, and so this draft that's coming in front of the town council, we're feeling pretty comprehensive.
Yes, and we have to, by state law now, we have to, what happens next is the town council approves it, then it goes up to statewide planning, and they do a thorough examination of the plan, and they send it out to the surrounding communities for their comments, and to all the state agencies for their comments. It comes back to us if there's some substantial changes that need to be made. It may have to go back to the planning board. I don't see, they've seen every word of this already.
Right.
And they've said, yeah, I think you got everything right. You got everything in there that's supposed to be there. So I don't expect that's about a 60-day process, and then it comes back to the town again, and we make whatever adjustments we make, and then they adopt the plan by ordinance. It sends it back up to statewide planning, and
Right.
we get a letter saying your plan is approved, and
Yep.
we have to. And one of the things I think is important here is that we, by state law, we have to update it every 5 years, and so.
Right, so we won't be 20 years in arrear going forward. I love it.
This plan's going to be a piece of cake to update
Well, I
in
love
5
that.
years.
Well,
So,
congratulations.
thank you.
This is quite the body of work, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing this with us. So, Gary, let me
Thank you.
shake your hand. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
And I will leave our audience just with a little bit of an action going forward. Please participate in the 3 workshops coming up on March 7th.
Public hearings,
Public hearings. Thank you. Thank you.
very official public hearings.
Very official. The 7th, the 21st, and April 4th.
Correct.
And check out the community plan, the comprehensive community plan on the portsmouthri.com website. Thanks very much. This is Conley. We'll see you next time on Portsmouth This Week.
Thank you.